right, number 3.
Ask the State Advisory Council to withdraw.
To withdraw the nomination. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second.
Well, I thought,
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
these
that was
were all
Christie's
my-
motion.
Yeah, I mean, this is my.
I think it was all her motion.
Okay, then,
Happy to have it be her motion.
Trustee Larry, you withdraw. Trustee Larry, your motion, your second.
Right.
Trustee Hughes, okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries. What's the next one?
Write a
Letter
letter
to
to the
village
community notifying
to-
residents of the. Now the board must ask ourselves how to respond to the results. However clear or unclear they are, from the negative letters and emails circulating within the community, it's obvious there's some level of discomfort with the National Register nomination. Extensive last-minute information, the board's inability to respond at the 11th hour, or to advocate for any issue on the ballot, resulted in a feeling of unease and confusion for some. There are still a lot of outstanding questions to be answered, and many that need to be re-answered for the 100th time on some of them. There obviously needs to be more discussion and clarification on our part and on the community's. Therefore, I think it's appropriate for the time being that we ask ISAC to withdraw, the Illinois Historic Sites Advisory Council, to withdraw the nomination from consideration. I am recommending this for 2 reasons. Uncertainty as a result of the irregular boundary due to the school's request to be removed from the district, and the advisory referendum results from last week. Lastly, I think it's important that the board send a letter to the community notifying them of the nomination withdrawal request and addressing the misinformation which has been recently circulated about the National Register and its applicability and effect for Kenilworth. I am asking for a consensus of the board.
It's made by both trustees. I do agree we ought to withdraw the nomination. In terms of looking at when I looked at the results of the vote and I looked at the various handouts that are out, I didn't take it so much as a vote against the National Register, but of people not wanting their taxes raised, not wanting restrictions, which I agree with completely. So I can understand why people who probably haven't really followed this would vote that way. But I do think we need to honor that. I think it is important. But I do think it's important that we clarify it. The good thing about this is we really achieved a major objective, is we have recognized content. There's information out there. I think it was all for the good. Maybe some future board may want to consider doing this a National Register nomination. That's fine. I think we've gained a lot, but I do think we should withdraw the nomination.
For 4 things. 1, to allow the use of the nomination by the Kenilworth Historical Society, which I mentioned earlier. 2, to link the nomination history information to the village's website under the history page, so that if potential residents or whoever is interested, they can find the information easily. Number 3, to request of the Illinois Historic Sites Advisory Council to withdraw the nomination. And 4, to write a letter to the community notifying residents of the request for withdrawal of the nomination and to address the recent information that's been circulated. That's it.
However, on the occasion of this important meeting, I do want to make my thoughts known regarding the recent advisory referendum on the National Historic District issue. As you know, I have consistently supported the advisory referendum as a solid method of gauging community sentiment on this issue. In the November 4th election, which produced the highest voter turnout in my memory, the results seem to indicate that over 64% of voters are not in favor of the proposal. This margin of 2 to 1 further indicates that this is a mandate by the community. To the argument of voters versus property owners, I continue to stress that we as trustees need to listen to the citizens that have elected us. To ignore the will of the majority of the people is an arrogant and dangerous position which can further destroy the trust that the voters have placed with us. I do not believe the argument that the referendum question was misleading. It may have been slightly inaccurate, but our community consists of very intelligent citizens who understand the real issue at hand. To think otherwise is insulting to them. Since the referendum was advisory, the advice I have taken from this vote is that the majority of our village is not in favor of this nomination. With that advice, I suggest we listen carefully and withdraw the application now and begin to refocus our time and resources on the more pressing issues that our community is facing in this very difficult economic time in our country. Then and only then can we begin to rebuild the trust and friendliness of our wonderful community. Bob Swintan.
Okay.
I have some comments.
Okay.
I would agree with what Trustee Leary said. that given the uncertainty of the viability of the proposed district due to its irregular boundary and to the results of the advisory referendum, I agree that I think we should withdraw the nomination, or request Isaac to withdraw the nomination.
Beyond that, I am in accord with what's already been talked about for the recommendations. I think the vote is very overwhelming in terms of 900 plus to 500 not in favor of it, so I would like to withdraw the nomination.
Trustee White?
My comment is that I also, I guess, have a statement, keep adding to it as I hear other thoughts. I've consistently believed and stated that we should have waited to send the nomination of our village to the National Register until after the advisory referendum on the issue. Throughout the discussion meetings, people have repeatedly asked this board, how do you know how the people feel about the National Register? We honestly didn't know. In this election, we had one of the largest turnouts in memory. Our residents voted almost 2-to-1 against having our village be a National Register district. The people have spoken. I do not believe the wording of the question was an issue. People voted on the big picture question of being a part of the National Register or not. As a village, we've talked about the great lengths of communication we provided. Our residents are bright and educated. For us to argue they did not understand this issue, the issue at hand, is not right. I concur with respect that Trustee Montana has voiced in the past that we can confidently listen to the voters, the same people who elected us to serve on this board. In terms of correcting misinformation that may or may not have gone out around the time of the election, I don't agree that that's something this village should do at this point in time. There may be actually just differing perspectives. We can possibly just agree to disagree. We need to rebuild the trust in this village board and around our community. In this process, this board talked about the benefits only. When any questions came up, if it was questioning or negative, the questioner was attacked. In order for, as an example, just even from what Trustee Basu just talked through, we described the tax-free process. She just described the tax-free process as an extremely difficult process, as if no one would take advantage of it, or the fact that we could opt out. We can't argue that it's a benefit when we're selling the program in, and explain that it's a huge positive, but then when it's mentioned as a negative, say that it's not important, and that it doesn't matter. We can't have it both ways. Also, the fact that residents received close to 12 letters in favor of this nomination added to comments I heard repeatedly that if this is only an honorary designation, why is there such extreme behavior? It just doesn't add up. I believe we should end the conversation on this topic and move forward with the many issues we face at this challenging time in our country and in our community. It's time the village board works to regain the trust of the people.
Thank you. Okay, I think everyone is speaking.